The first time it happens, it hits you like a punch you didn't see coming. One day she's there, texting you, laughing with you, planning weekends. The next, complete silence. Radio dead. She's not angry. She's not explaining. She's just gone. Days crawl by. You check your phone more than you'd ever admit. Every notification makes your chest tighten. But it's never her. Weeks pass. The hope starts fading. You tell yourself it's over. You actually start believing it. Then one random Tuesday your phone lights up. Her name. After all this silence. After all this distance. Like she never disappeared at all. The message is casual. Almost too casual. Hey, how have you been? Sometimes it's a meme. Sometimes it's a question about something meaningless. The tone is light. Friendly. Like the months of nothing were just a brief pause between conversations. And you're sitting there staring at those words, completely thrown off balance. How does someone who walked away so cleanly just circle back like nothing happened? How does someone who gave you complete silence suddenly act curious again? What changed? Did she miss you? Did something happen? Did she finally realize what she lost? Your mind races through possibilities. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she sees things clearly. Maybe this time it'll actually work. But here's what you need to understand right now. This isn't random. This isn't fate. This isn't her suddenly having an emotional breakthrough at 2 in the morning. What you're witnessing isn't love pulling her back. It's not even longing. It's gravity. Cold, predictable, mechanical. And once you understand the actual forces at play here, her return stops being this mysterious, emotional event. It becomes obvious, expected, almost boring in its predictability. The reason she's back has very little to do with missing you as a person. It has almost everything to do with what you represented in her internal world. You weren't just a boyfriend. You were a function, a stabilizing reference point, an emotional anchor she could push against, test, lean on, and still feel secure. While you were present, you were her foundation. She didn't think about it. She didn't appreciate it. But she relied on it every single day. Then she left. But here's the part she didn't anticipate. She didn't replace that anchor. She just removed it, tossed it overboard thinking she'd feel lighter, freer, more alive. And for a while she did. The first few weeks felt incredible. Liberation, possibility, adventure. No one telling her what to do. No one expecting anything from her. The world felt wide open. But freedom without structure doesn't stay liberating for long. It becomes disorienting, unsettling, empty. Without something solid to push against, her emotional world loses orientation. There's no up or down, no center, just constant motion with nothing to grab onto. That's when the pull starts. Not toward you specifically, toward stability, toward the feeling of being grounded, toward what used to make sense when everything else was chaos. And that pull is stronger than you think. Let's get brutally honest right now. Her coming back has almost nothing to do with missing you as a person. Read that again. Let it sink in. Because this is where most men get it completely wrong. They think she came back because she realized his value. Because she saw what she had. Because absence made the heart grow fonder and all that romantic garbage. No. She came back because of what you represented inside her head. The role you played. The function you served. When you were together, you were her reference point. Her emotional anchor. The thing she could push against, rebel against, test, and still feel completely secure with. You were the wall that made her feel contained without feeling trapped. Think about it. When she was stressed, you were there. When she was spiraling, you grounded her. When she was uncertain, your certainty gave her something to stand on. She might have fought it. She might have resisted. But she needed it. You were her emotional baseline. Then she left. But here's what she didn't see coming. She didn't replace you. She just removed you. Cut the anchor loose thinking the boat would sail faster. And removal doesn't feel like liberation for long. At first, it's exhilarating. The world feels massive. Possibilities seem endless. She's finally free from expectations, from routine, from predictability. She can do whatever she wants. Be whoever she wants. Answer to no one. But freedom without structure isn't freedom. It's floating, drifting, weightlessness. And weightlessness, after the initial thrill wears off, becomes deeply uncomfortable, disorienting, almost nauseating. Without something to push against, her emotional world has no orientation, no compass, no gravity. Everything just sort of floats around with nothing to hold on to. Here's where most men make a fatal assumption. They think distance makes her forget, that time erases the imprint, that she's out there living her best life, not thinking about them at all. Dead wrong. For women, distance often does the opposite. It amplifies. When you're gone, the daily friction disappears. The arguments fade into background noise. The annoying habits blur. What remains isn't the reality of who you actually were. It's the feeling of being grounded. The sense of stability she didn't even notice until it vanished. That absence creates a vacuum. Not because she suddenly sees your worth in some grand revelation. Not because she's had this romantic awakening where she realizes you were the one. Because her internal world needs a familiar structure to regulate itself again. She needs something solid. Something known. Something that doesn't require constant effort to figure out. And you were that structure. You were the thing she could count on without thinking about it. The constant in a world of variables. The predictable center when everything else was chaos. She took it for granted when it was there. Now that it's gone, she feels the absence like a missing tooth. Her tongue keeps going to that spot, over and over. Not because the tooth was special. Because the gap is unbearable. That's what pulls her back. Not love. Not longing. Need. Here's where I'm going to tell you something that might sting a little. She didn't come back because she lost something irreplaceable. That's a nice story. Feels good to believe. It feeds your ego. Makes you feel valuable. Important. Like you were this once-in-a-lifetime connection she finally recognized. But it's not what's actually happening. She came back because her internal narrative collapsed without an external reference point. Let me break that down. The new guys? They didn't stabilize her the way she thought they would. The attention she got didn't soothe that deeper ache. The novelty wore off faster than she expected. Way faster. All those exciting possibilities she left you for? They turned out to be surface-level distractions. Fun for a moment. Empty after that. When the emotional noise finally settled, when the distractions stopped working, her mind reached for what once felt solid. Not perfect. Not some idealized romance. Just known. Familiar. Safe. You weren't special because you were extraordinary. You were special because you were consistent. And here's the brutal paradox that most men never understand. Consistency is completely invisible while it's present. And absolutely unbearable when it's gone. Think about it. When you were there every day, she felt restless. Maybe even bored. Constrained. She looked at you and wondered if this was it. There was something more exciting out there. Someone who made her feel more alive. She took your steadiness for granted because steady doesn't spike the emotions. It doesn't create drama. It just exists quietly in the background. But when you left, when that consistency disappeared, she felt uncontained. Exposed. Like she was floating in open water with nothing to grab onto. Emotionally untethered from everything that once made sense. That's when memory becomes a liar. The mind doesn't replay what actually happened. It doesn't show her the arguments, the frustrations, the moments she felt trapped. It replays comfort. It highlights the calm moments. The times she didn't have to think or worry or figure anything out. The feeling of being psychologically held even when she pretended she didn't want it. That's the pull you're feeling when she resurfaces. And here's the tell that gives away everything. Notice how she doesn't come back apologetic. She's not owning what she did. She's not acknowledging the damage or the silence or the way she just vanished. She comes back testing. A casual message. A reaction check. A subtle re-entry to see if the door is still unlocked. She's not sure if the structure still exists. If you're still there. If you're still available to stabilize her world again the way you used to. And the moment you rush toward her? The second you explain yourself or open up emotionally without any restraint. The cycle resets. Not because she planned to manipulate you. Not because she's some master strategist. Because the system works again. She gets what she came back for. Stability. Grounding. That anchor feeling. And once she has it, the restlessness will eventually return. The pattern repeats, because nothing actually changed. Notice something really strange about the timing? She never comes back when you're desperate. Never when you're checking her social media at 3 in the morning. Never when you're replaying old conversations in your head. Never when you're hoping every single notification is her name lighting up your screen. She doesn't reach out when you're still emotionally wrecked. When you take her back in a heartbeat. When you're basically sitting there waiting for her to remember you exist. No. She returns when you're calm. When you've genuinely stopped checking. When you've finally actually started to let go. Right when you're not thinking about her anymore. Right when you've stopped caring. And most men think this is some cosmic coincidence. Some mysterious spiritual connection. Like she can sense your energy shifting across the universe. It's not mystical. It's not fate. It's pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. Your lack of pursuit signals something incredibly powerful to her system. Stability. When you're not chasing, you're no longer orbiting her emotions. You've stopped making her the center of your universe. You've re-entered your own gravity. You've become your own center again. And that shift doesn't create attraction in the romantic, butterflies in your stomach sense. It creates orientation. She feels the pull toward something grounded, something solid. She wants to feel anchored again because everything else in her world is still floating. But here's what kills me. What most men completely miss. Groundedness doesn't chase. It doesn't move. It stays exactly where it is. Her leaving was never really about escape. Not in the way you think. It was about testing independence without consequence. Seeing what life felt like without the anchor weighing her down. Exploring whether the grass actually was greener somewhere else. She wanted to know if she could be happy without you. And when that independence started feeling hollow, when the freedom became disorienting instead of exciting, she looked back to see if the emotional safety net still existed. That's exactly why she returns right when you detach. Detachment doesn't push her away. It removes pressure. And without pressure, without that desperate need radiating from you, her emotional system naturally seeks equilibrium again. It seeks you. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask. If she can return this easily, what does that actually tell you? It means nothing fundamental was resolved. The underlying dynamics didn't shift even slightly. Only the emotional weather changed. If you let her back in without any boundaries, without observing whether her behavior has actually evolved, without requiring anything different from her, you're not restarting a relationship. You're resuming a pattern. The exact same pattern. One where she leaves when she feels restless and comes back when she feels empty. Where you're the emotional insurance policy she cashes in whenever life gets uncertain. And the real danger here isn't her coming back. It's you mistaking that return for growth. For change. For her finally seeing the light. Her return doesn't mean she's different. It means she's uncomfortable again. And you're the familiar place she runs to when discomfort hits. That's not love. That's not connection. That's convenience dressed up in nostalgia. The man who truly understands what's happening here doesn't celebrate when she reappears. He doesn't resent it either. He observes. Because he knows something most men never figure out. Her return isn't a reward. It's not validation. It's not proof that you won or that she finally came to her senses. It's a test. A test of whether you learned the lesson while she was gone. A test of whether you stayed anchored or fell apart. A test of whether you rebuilt your life or just sat there waiting for her to come back and restart it. A test of whether you now operate from reality instead of emotional reaction. And depending on how you respond in this exact moment, this becomes one of two things. Either the final repetition of an exhausting cycle you've been stuck in, or the point where it ends permanently. Most men think the moment she returns is about deciding whether to take her back. Surface level thinking. The real decision happened long before she sent that message. It happened in the silence. In the weeks and months after she left. In the choice you made to either reconstruct your center or stay emotionally frozen exactly where she left you. If you did the actual work, her return feels almost anticlimactic. You're not pulled forward by hope. You're not dragged backward by memory. You're just standing still, watching. And that stillness, that calm observation, it's completely unfamiliar to her. She remembers you as reactive, accommodating, emotionally available on demand. always there when she needed you. When she meets composure instead of eagerness, it unsettles her more than outright rejection ever could. Rejection she can process. Rejection she understands. But calm indifference? That's confusing. Destabilizing. Her curiosity actually intensifies when you don't ask the questions she expected. When you don't demand explanations for where she's been. When you don't rehash the past or try to figure out what went wrong. Because explanation requires emotion. And emotion gives her leverage. A foothold. A way back into influencing your internal state. Silence, on the other hand, forces her to confront herself. And self-confrontation is exactly what she avoided the first time she walked away. So she probes. She softens her tone. She tests warmth and vulnerability. Not to genuinely reconnect. Not yet. To see if your internal position has shifted back toward her orbit. To check if you're still the same man she left or if something fundamental has changed. This is where weak men completely fail. Not because they want her back. That's understandable. Natural even. They fail because they want closure. And closure is a trap. It's an invitation to step back into emotional negotiation. To explain. To process. To talk things through. And once you're negotiating, once you're explaining your feelings and trying to make her understand, you're no longer grounded. You're participating in the old dynamic again. The strongest position you can take isn't coldness. It's not cruelty or playing games or trying to hurt her back. It's neutrality. You don't punish her return. You don't reward it either. You let her presence exist without granting it meaning. Without making it significant. Without letting it shake your foundation. That's when everything shifts. Understand this clearly right now. She doesn't come back because she changed. She comes back because you did. Or at least she senses that you might have. Your absence created space. Your silence created contrast. Your lack of reaction completely rewired her expectations. Now she's trying to figure out where she fits in a world that kept moving without her. And that's deeply destabilizing for someone who was used to being the emotional center of your universe. If you stay steady, something fascinating starts to happen. She begins revealing herself. Not intentionally. Not strategically. Inevitably. Her patience gets shorter. Her emotional spikes start surfacing. Her need for reassurance becomes visible in ways it never was before. Because what she's really asking, without ever saying it directly, is incredibly simple. Is this still safe for me? And safety here doesn't mean love. It doesn't mean commitment or connection or any of that. It means access. Emotional access. Psychological access. The ability to influence your mood, your decisions, your internal state. The moment she realizes she no longer has that access by default, that she can't just waltz back in and pick up where things left off, anxiety replaces nostalgia. Fast. This is where men who actually hold their frames see one of two outcomes. Never anything in between. Either she adapts. She slows down. She meets you where you're standing now instead of expecting you to rush toward where she is. She demonstrates through actual behavior, not just words, that something fundamental has shifted in how she operates. Or she disappears again. Usually way faster than before. Not because you rejected her. Not because you were cruel or cold or played games. Because you no longer fit the role she needed filled. You're not the emergency emotional support anymore. You're not the backup plan. You're not the safe harbor she can drift back to whenever life gets uncomfortable. And without that utility, the interaction loses its momentum completely. Both outcomes are confirmations. One confirms growth. Real change. The possibility that something different could actually happen this time. The other confirms dependency. It confirms she hasn't evolved. That she's still operating from the same emotional patterns that caused the problem in the first place. Neither outcome requires you to argue. To explain. To convince her of anything. You just stand where you are and watch what happens. Here's the irony that almost feels cruel when you finally see it. The moment you stop needing her to stay is the exact moment she's most likely to want to. Neediness repels because it signals instability. It broadcasts that you can't regulate yourself. That you need her to feel okay. Detachment attracts because it signals self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency is deeply calming to an emotional system that's been relying on external regulation. She doesn't want to carry the weight of her own internal chaos. Nobody does. She wants to lean against something solid. Something unmoved by her moods and uncertainties. But here's the thing about solid. Solid doesn't beg to be leaned on. It doesn't chase. It doesn't convince. It just stands there. Stable. Grounded. Available but not desperate. And that difference, that subtle but massive difference, changes absolutely everything. Most men ask the completely wrong question. They sit there analyzing, wondering, obsessing over why she keeps coming back. Like it's some big mystery they need to solve. But the real question, the one that actually matters, the one that changes everything? Why do I keep letting her return the same way? Because repetition only continues where boundaries don't exist. Think about it. If she can leave impulsively, disappear without explanation, ghost you for weeks or months, and then just casually slide back into your life like nothing happened, nothing has fundamentally changed. She's not respecting you. She's not valuing what you bring. She's not treating this like something worth protecting. She's testing availability, seeing if the door is still unlocked, checking if you're still right where she left you. And availability without standards, without requirements, without any cost for walking away? That's just delayed abandonment. It's not a relationship. It's a revolving door. When you finally stop romanticizing her return, when you stop making it mean something deep and significant, the illusion shatters completely. You see it for what it actually is. A response to imbalance, not destiny. A recalibration attempt, not a confession of love. She's not coming back because she realized you were the one. She's coming back because her world feels unstable and you represent stability. Once you see that clearly, your emotions settle. You're no longer flattered by her attention. You're not offended by her absence. You're assessing. Calmly. Objectively. Without the emotional charge that used to cloud everything. Like a man who understands that peace is built by what he allows into his life, not by what he hopes will happen. This is the turning point most men never reach. Because reaching it requires letting go of something really seductive. The fantasy that her return validates you. That it proves you were special. That it confirms your worth. That it means you won somehow. It doesn't. Your growth validates you. Your stability validates you. Your ability to stand completely unmoved when old patterns come knocking on your door, that validates you. When you finally reach that place, something irreversible happens inside you. You stop being surprised by her behavior. You stop being thrown off balance. You stop reacting emotionally to every shift in her energy. You realize that whether she stays or leaves again no longer defines you. It doesn't touch your peace. It doesn't shake your foundation. It doesn't determine your worth. The cycle only continues for the man who hasn't yet learned to end it. For the man who's still hoping things will be different without anything actually changing. For the man who mistakes her presence for progress. But once you understand what's really happening, once you see the mechanics behind it all, the cycle loses its power. You're not cold. You're not bitter. You're not closed off. You're just clear. Clear about what you'll accept. Clear about what behavior you'll tolerate. Clear about the difference between genuine change and temporary adjustment. And that clarity is what finally sets you free. Not her apology. Not her explanation. Not her deciding to stay. Your clarity. Your standards. Your refusal to participate in patterns that cost you peace. That's what ends it. Once you understand the mechanics behind her return, you stop personalizing it. That's the shift that changes everything. You no longer see it as proof that you mattered deeply. You don't see it as evidence that you failed somehow. You see it as a predictable response to imbalance. A pattern. A system seeking regulation. Basic emotional physics. And this clarity? It's dangerous in the best possible way. It removes emotional leverage from the situation entirely. When she senses that you're no longer interpreting her actions through hope or resentment, when she realizes you're not assigning deep meaning to her reappearance, the old dynamic collapses. There's nothing left to manipulate. No reaction to feed off. No emotional mirror reflecting her uncertainty back at her. No validation for her patterns. What unsettles her most isn't rejection. It's irrelevance. Anger still means attachment. She can work with that. Coldness still implies hurt. That proves she still affects you. But calm disinterest? That's destabilizing on a completely different level. Because it suggests you've internalized something she hasn't. You've learned to self-regulate. You've learned to be whole without needing her presence to feel stable. And that creates an asymmetry she can't emotionally reconcile. She wants to be chosen but not chased. Wanted but not needed. Desired but not depended on. The moment she realizes she's optional, not central, not even particularly important to your daily existence, the power equation flips completely. This is where men either solidify their growth or undo it entirely. The temptation is subtle, sneaky even. She sounds warmer now. She seems more self-aware. She hints at reflection and personal growth. And part of you, maybe a big part, wants to believe the shift is real. That she's finally different. That this time will be different. But here's what you need to understand about emotional consistency. It's not proven by words spoken during uncertainty. It's proven by behavior maintained over time. Anyone can sound evolved when they want something back. Anyone can say the right things when they're feeling the pull of loneliness or regret. Very few can remain stable when comfort returns. When access is restored. When the pressure is off. Pay close attention to what she does after she feels secure again. Does she respect your time? Does she honor your boundaries? Does she move at your pace instead of demanding you meet hers? Or does the old volatility resurface the moment she senses access has been restored? Does the restlessness come back? Does the testing begin again? Does she start pulling away the second she feels like she has you? Because emotional growth isn't dramatic. It's boring. It looks like restraint when she's frustrated. It looks like patience when things aren't exciting. It looks like fewer highs and way fewer lows. If what she's offering is intensity disguised as insight, if it's emotional fireworks packaged as depth, you already know where that road leads. You've been down it before. Men constantly confuse forgiveness with surrender. They're not the same thing. Forgiveness is internal. It happens inside you. It frees you from resentment and bitterness. It lets you move forward without carrying weight. Surrender is behavioral. It's external. It costs you something real. You can absolutely let go of resentment without reopening the door. You can acknowledge the past, understand what happened, even wish her well without repeating the same patterns. The strongest men don't hold grudges. But they also don't offer unlimited access to people who destabilize their inner world. At this final stage, something quiet but permanent has shifted deep inside you. You're no longer trying to control outcomes. You're not rehearsing conversations in your head anymore. You're not bracing for the next emotional storm. And that internal stillness? That's the real transformation. Not her behavior. Not whether she comes back. Not whether she stays or goes. You've learned something most men never figure out. Peace doesn't come from finally being understood by someone else. It comes from no longer needing to be. That's when relationships stop feeling like constant negotiations and start feeling like actual choices. Most men never realize how much of their identity was tied to being reacted to. The highs of her attention. The lows of her distance. The drama. The intensity. It kept the emotional system activated. Addicted to the chaos. Dependent on the ups and downs just to feel alive. When that stimulation disappears, there's a withdrawal period. Silence feels heavy. Unbearable even. Calm feels completely unfamiliar. Wrong somehow. But if you stay with it, if you push through that discomfort, you discover something crucial. Stability doesn't feel exciting at first. It feels empty. And that emptiness isn't actually emptiness. It's just unused space. Clean space. Space waiting to be filled with something real instead of something reactive. You stop asking whether she understands you. Understanding is overrated anyway. Everybody wants to be understood. It's a fantasy that keeps people stuck. What actually matters is respect. And respect isn't shown through words or promises or late-night confessions. It's shown through restraint. Through consistency. Through how someone behaves when they don't get immediate reassurance or validation. The men who master this don't become cold. They don't shut down or close themselves off from connection. They become selective. Their openness is no longer unconditional. It's no longer available to anyone who shows interest. It's earned. They listen way more than they speak. They observe patterns instead of chasing explanations. They watch behavior over time instead of believing words in the moment. And because they're no longer emotionally overinvested in any single outcome, they see clearly, not cynically, clearly. There's a huge difference. Cynicism hardens you, makes you bitter, turns you into someone you don't want to be. Clarity frees you. Her return loses its mystique once you recognize it for what it actually is. A response to internal instability, not external love. You stop replaying the past in your mind. You stop fantasizing about what could be different this time. You stop assigning meaning to timing or coincidence. Timing doesn't reveal destiny. It reveals readiness. And readiness isn't something you sit around waiting for in someone else. It's something you cultivate in yourself every single day. Looking back now, you don't regret what happened. You understand why it had to unfold exactly the way it did. The cycle taught you restraint. It taught you discernment. It taught you the real cost of emotional overinvestment. And lessons learned at that level never fade. The cycle doesn't end with some big confrontation. It doesn't end with closure or apologies or mutual understanding. It ends with indifference, with growth, with forward motion that doesn't keep glancing backward. You didn't win her back. You won yourself back. And once that happens, nothing from the past holds any weight again. Her return stopped being significant. Not because she stopped reaching out, because you stopped waiting. The man who understands why she returns is the same man who no longer cares if she does. That's not coldness. That's completion. If this hit different, subscribe. More truth coming.